All right, everyone, how you doing today? It's still a little
Hello,
light.
how are you?
Good. We're a little light with students, so hopefully they'll show up in the near future. So a couple of things is that I'm just pushing stuff onto my desktop that we're going to go over today. I'm streaming the class now live on YouTube. So the review video will be just a pure stream of this class without me editing out and making it a little shorter. I'm incredibly busy the next couple of weeks, and the extra couple of hours it takes me to edit and render and upload are hours I can't really afford over the next few weeks. I've got I've got two TV projects going on at once, and time crunches on all of them. So something has to give, and I'll put chapters up as soon as I can, so you can at least click to the different sections instead of having to watch through the whole thing. Just to, if you do watch them, just to find the things that you want to review. So I'll definitely try to get to that. But it's streaming on YouTube right now, and it'll be up after the class is over. So, and yeah, so that's good. All right, so let me just get everything in a row here so I can see everything. Um, got one more camera to turn on. Hold on. All right. So if I go to our classroom today, there are some PDFs in here if you want to follow along. I can pop them up into the chat as well for you to download. Interesting. All right, let me do this. There's a bunch of PDFs there. All right. Okay, we seem to have most people here, so we can move on. So we're moving on into audio now. We're not recording audio yet. We will be there. I'm going to show you some more MIDI stuff today, but I don't think that there's going to be another MIDI assignment. The piece that you're working on is due 1 week from today. Please upload wherever you are in the piece by tomorrow so that I can look at it and give you feedback for the last week. I'm trying to, guide you guys to get a good grade on the project. And if you're not handing in a draft, I can't give you feedback to make your project better. All right. And there are a few things I saw that I want to go over. Also, people should be really aware of. I saw some interesting hieroglyphics on MIDI clips, which it took me a minute to figure out what they were. And I want to make sure that you understand some of the tools and how if you're not on the right tool, it does different things to the clip. So the first subject I want to talk about today has to do with signal flow. And you could think of it as a route. So if you want to get let's say you want to get from your house to Queens College, you have probably multiple ways to get there. You've got the way that you most normally take, right? Whatever that is, whether it's a bus, whether it's a subway to a bus, whether it's multiple buses, whether you drive and try to find parking near the campus, or whether you've got a parking sticker and you can find on-campus parking. But you can drive there, and if you're driving from your house, there might be multiple ways to get to the college. multiple routes you can take. And there's kind of like a flow from where you start to where you end up. And there's something called signal flow that's really an important concept for you to understand in any kind of amplified or recorded music. It's interesting. So if I were to take like my acoustic guitar, right? I've got a plectrum in my hand, and if I were to strum a chord, right, the strings vibrate. I fret them in a certain spot. The body resonates, right? And the sound, a lot of the sound comes out from the sound hole projected towards you. So you could say the signal flow would be something like me strumming and, you know, fretting a chord, and the strings vibrating, and the guitar body being used as an amplifier to project the sound out from you, right? So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end point to it. Whoops. Let me get back in my chair here with all these cables all over the place. So inside of Pro Tools, there's signal flow also. But what I want to get across to you is not inside of Pro Tools at first. And I think this is kind of a little bit easier for everybody to understand. So I made all these, and you guys can download them. All right, so everybody sees that this is and this flows opposite of the direction we read, because mostly the guitar jack is on this side of the guitar, right? And you'll see once I go to the next one why. I'm going from left to right, from right to left instead of from left to right. So you have your source, excuse me, which is the guitar. The guitar strings vibration is turned into electrical energy by the pickup. A pickup is a transducer. And a transducer is a very important concept, because when we talk about microphones or speakers over the next couple of weeks, they are also transducers. So a transducer converts one type of energy to another, right? So the string vibration is turned into electrical energy by the pickup. The pickup is wired. Let me just fix this microphone. The pickup is wired, and as you could see over here on the guitar, there are these 3 knobs and this 5-way switch. These are your pickups. They're like little microphones on the guitar, and the position of this switch selects which one of these pickups is active. So it's in the middle now, which means that the middle pickup is active. So there's most of these Stratocaster style guitars have 5 positions. If this was all the way in the front, you would be using this first pickup. If it was between the front and the middle, you'd have these 2 pickups. If it's in the middle, it's just this pickup. If it was between the middle and the complete back, it's these 2 pickups. And if it was all the way in the back position, it would be just this pickup. Then there's a volume, which is a volume attenuates the output of all the pickups the same amount. And then 2 tone controls, which rolls off high end. I think that's the way those work. They're passive. And the way that they're wired in a modern Stratocaster is this tone control controls the tone of these 2 pickups, and this one controls this. In older Stratocasters, there were no tone controls on the back pickup. This was for the front pickup, and this was for this pickup. but that's different in modern times. So, vibration, transducer. Transducer changes the sound to electrical energy, and depending upon the switch, will which pickup is active. This pickup is wired through these tone controls and volume pot. You could control how much signal is coming through and how much high end is rolled off. That is wired to this output jack, and this output jack takes a 1/4-inch cable, and that for those of you that don't know, it's a cable like this, except it's 15 or 20 feet long. This is a short one, but these are 1/4-inch jacks, right? One of these gets plugged into that part of the guitar. One of these gets plugged into the part of the guitar that's hidden by my face, into this part of the guitar, and then the other one gets plugged into the amplifier. Let me make this big again. All right, so you got a cable going from here to here. So the signal flow is you strike the strings, they vibrate, they go through the pickups, through this stuff, comes out of here through a cable, gets plugged into the amplifier. All right. An amplifier does what the name implies. It amplifies or increases the amplitude. Remember, we went over amplitude. That's the volume when we went over waveforms. So it increases the amplitude of an electrical signal from the guitar. This is routed to a speaker, right? So patch cable, input, through all of the preamp and amplifier and tone stack and whatever else is in these controls. And after it goes through all this, it's routed to a speaker. A speaker is another type of transducer. Now remember, a transducer converts one type of energy to another. A speaker is a transducer that changes the electrical signal back to audible energy through vibrations of the speaker cone. All right? So you have vibrations that are turned into electrical energy. The electrical energy it's very weak, the electrical signal. Like you wouldn't get any kind of shock from it, right? The electrical energy goes through the amplifier, and then that's routed to the speaker, and the speaker changes that electrical energy back to vibrations. So it starts with vibrations and ends in this signal path with vibrations. And then once it's out of the speaker, right, it could bounce off of walls. It could do all sorts of stuff to change that, depending upon the size of the room, which will also change the sound. But as far as what we're talking about right here, this is the signal routing for this, all right? That's basic ABC signal routing. Now, I'm not going to talk about, all the different parts of a guitar amplifier, except to tell you that there's a preamplifier that takes that very weak signal and makes it loud enough to drive the power amplifier section. And the preamplifier also has tone stacks, which has like a volume, a treble, bass, and there might be a routing to a spring reverb, and this has this particular amp has a tremolo circuit. So those are all part of the guitar amp. But the basic meat and potatoes ABC thing you need to know is vibrations turn into electrical energy, travel through a cable into the guitar amp, get amplified, increasing the amplitude of that electrical signal, routed to a speaker, and the speaker is another transducer that changes that electricity back into vibrations. So it starts as vibrations and ends as much louder vibrations, okay? Any questions on that? Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. So, if we imagine that this stuff in the middle isn't here, right? This is our basic routing from the previous example. Guitar, amplifier. Same thing as before. Vibrations, electricity. Electricity gets amplified out the speaker as vibrations. Insert it into the signal path, right? Which means that the cable gets put into the insert of this pedal, right? Guitarists, like, hold on a second, let me get one. Guitarists have little pedals like this that you see on the floor or on a board or something like that that change the quality of the sound, right? And this is a reverb pedal, which adds like all sorts of different room sizes and halls and everything. And basically, this gets inserted into the signal path. So there's an input from the guitar and an output that goes, right, and an output that goes to the speaker, to the amplifier. And the reason why I've got the picture going from right to left, like here, is that on these pedals, this is always the input on all these pedals, and this is always the output. That's the standard setup for them. Okay, so yeah, everybody following me? This is really important stuff to understand, and I'll show you how this works with the DAW and Pro Tools in a second. So you have your basic signal path from the guitar to the amplifier to the speaker of the amplifier. And you are going to insert little boxes in that signal path with little cables. So the first one we have here is a wah-wah pedal, which is sort of like a filter. Then an overdrive, which adds harmonics to the sound. Delay or echo, which adds copies of the sound that occur after the original sound. Reverb. You could have one of these. You could have two of these. You could have any number that you want. And then that sound eventually ends up into the amplifier. These are inserted into the signal path because this is the direct line from the beginning of the signal to here is interrupted by all of these boxes, right? So they're inserted. It's like as if you took that one long patch cable and cut it up into like little bits, right? And stuck this in one bit, this in another bit, this in another bit, this in the last one, and then into the amplifier. Now, I guess this is fine. In the red down here, this is the DAW or Pro Tools equivalent. You have the source, which is an audio file or a software VI like in Pro Tools Expand or Mini Grand. That's creating the sound. That is going through, we can have that go directly to the output, right? Or we can insert plugins, they're called. They're kind of like these little boxes, but they're done in the digital domain. And you could add tone shaping things like EQ, volume shaping things like compression, all sorts of stuff in there. And it's very similar to this. So you've got your source, which is your audio file or your instrument, your software VI, virtual instrument. You can plug in inserts into the signal path, and that goes to the output, to the speakers. Everybody with me still? I have to tell you, when I was your age, I was, most of you guys don't know this, but when I was at Queens College from 78 to 82 as an undergraduate, I paid for college by playing piano keyboards in top 40 bar bands, any kind, wedding bands, whatever I could get at night. And, nobody told me about any of this stuff, and my stuff would have sounded a lot better had I been been shown all this stuff, but this kind of education wasn't really around back then. And it was like I had to learn how to program synthesizers by myself. I didn't have a YouTube to teach me that. And, I'd had a electronic music class in high school, but it was really basic and I'd forgotten all that stuff by this point. So, this stuff is really helpful on a lot of levels. So, for example, if you're a music educator and you're helping putting on the school musical, hopefully one day again, right? You might need to know signal flow to help with like the backing tracks that you might do if you don't have enough musicians to fill out the pit orchestra, right? So this stuff has practical uses in the real world. It's not just some theoretical stuff. All right, let's get back into it. So, track types, right? So there are instrument tracks. There were audio tracks. We went over audio tracks a little bit in our last class. Audio tracks contain audio information. In modern DAWs, such as Pro Tools, Logic, Cubase, Reaper, Ableton, GarageBand, the info is digital, right? This is a typo here. This type of track can be either mono, which is one channel, or stereo, which is two channels. So if we were meeting in person this semester, we would be doing both mono recording and stereo recording. I'd show you how to record a drum kit with two microphones, for example. Or we'd all get together in the room and do something with a couple of microphones to pick it up in stereo. But we're just going to learn mono for this semester. I will go and talk a little bit about stereo miking techniques, but that's just so that you'll have the information. Aux Tracks. An aux track is a track or channel in a DAW that functions similarly to an aux input on a mixer. It is a bus destination for routing signals. I will explain what buses are. Just get the big picture for now, and then as we're going forward, I'll get into details. Audio that gets sent to the aux track does not get recorded. It passes through the channel. An aux track is useful for adding time-based effects such as reverb and delay to multiple audio or instrument tracks. They are also useful for routing the outputs of a series of related tracks. Like, let's say you've recorded a drum kit where you've got separate outputs for the kick, the snare, the hi-hats, and the overhead microphones, which capture your tom-toms. You could route the outputs of all of those tracks to an stereo aux track, and then if you wanted to process the entire kit, you could do it all on the aux track. And I will show you these, just get the general idea. I will go over these in detail. And then the last one is a Vca Master Track. Now, I'm just going to tell you what this is. We're going to do all this stuff up to here. We're not going to use Vca Master Tracks this semester. I teach this at the end of Audio MIDI 1, but I'll just let you know what it is. A Vca Master Track is a voltage-controlled amplifier track. It provides a means of easily controlling a group of faders, allowing the overall level of the grouped tracks to be brought up and down while maintaining the relative balance of the group members and retaining the individual track automation. Okay, so let's think about what this means. So let's say I'm working on a piece of music, and I've got a wind section, a brass section, and a string section. So in my wind section, I've got flute, oboe, clarinet, and bassoon. So if I grouped those as a group, and I put in a Vca Master Track, and let's say I've gone through that and I've balanced it so that they're all at the right volume relative to each other. In other words, the bassoon is balanced with the flute and the clarinet and the oboe. They're all balanced together. They sound good as like a little mini choir of instruments. The Vca Master, you can keep that relationship and bring the volume up and down to balance that little mini choir of winds with the rest of your piece. right? So it gives you a good, instead of having to individually go to all 4 of those instruments and play around with the volume and balance everything again, you can just do everything from the VCA Master Track. We don't need that this semester. If you take more classes with me, we will definitely get into that in the future. They're really incredibly useful, all right? Okay, so just to go over this again, we know a little bit about instrument tracks. We know a little bit about audio tracks. The thing to learn about audio tracks is stereo and mono. So mono is just 1 channel and stereo is 2 channels, typically left and right. You could take that mono track and pan it anywhere in the stereo field you'd like, but audio tracks are mono or stereo, and Aux tracks, which are tracks that can be either stereo or mono, and you can route audio through them. They don't record audio. They just allow audio to be sent through them, and they're typically used either to route all the audio outputs of, let's say, a drum kit. So you've got one master audio output of 5 or 6 tracks of drums that you can put reverb, or not reverb, EQ or compression over the whole kit. Or you can have a reverb plugin in the Aux track, and you can send a copy of the audio from, let's say, the guitar track through that reverb. And that's something that we will be going over this semester. All right. It sounds more complicated than it is. All right. Let's look inside of our DAW. So this is your basic signal flow signal flow in a DAW, right? You've got an audio track that's got audio information, and it goes through the audio channel in this. Oh, sorry. Okay. This is your basic DAW audio signal flow. This is your audio track with your audio information on it. It goes through the audio channel, right? It comes out the audio channel and is routed to what's called the master bus, which is the master output of your DAW. And then the output of that goes through your amplifier, your speaker, your headphones, whatever you've got, or your laptop speakers, whatever you've got it routed to. Audio through the channel, audio information goes through the channel, and it comes out what's called the master bus. You don't have to have a master bus track. It goes through the master bus outputs of Pro Tools, which gets routed to in your case of your laptops, through your laptop speakers or your earbuds or headphones. Right? The way I've got it routed in my studio is it goes through a speaker controller, and I've got 2 pairs of speakers that I can play back, and I can choose where the music should come out from. So let's do something like this so that I can show you. Great. Okay. So we've been working in the edit window, and I want to continue for you guys to work in the edit window, but I'm going to show you the mixer window because it's easier to illustrate. The mixer window is just another way to view what's going on in Pro Tools. But right now, this is my audio file of this little easy piano part. So you could see that when I play the piano part, on the piano track, right here, you're seeing the level of the audio that's playing from here as it's going through these inserts, right? So let me show you that on the mixer track. I mean, mixer page. So let me zoom in a little bit. I want to make sure that we see the entire thing. All right. So the way that this works is that audio here is routed so that it goes through this top level here, which are called inserts. and it comes out of the analog 1 and 2, which is my outputs here. For you guys, it'd be built-in speakers probably, or built-in output or something like that. Don't worry about the sends yet. Let's just go. This is the source right here, and it goes through this little area here with all these racks, these 5 racks, and then it comes out of the analog output, which is your master bus. Now, do you see here, this is an insert, right? So when we've been instantiating Pro Tools, an instrument, we put it in an instrument track, we put an instrument in the insert area. In the audio area, we could put in inserts, and if I go to, let's say, Avid, I could put in, won't have all these, but I'll only use the ones that come with Pro Tools. These are called plugins. I could put this EQ in here, and I can affect the sound. So what's happening is this sound is going through this guy right here, through the insert area, and I've inserted what's called an EQ, a tone shaping control there, right? And the audio is being processed with this. Now, this is really important. Let me get this back down to Unity. One thing to realize about any of these plugins is that right here, you've got a meter. The top one is the input level, and the bottom one is the output level. And you could see that they're both the same, right? And you could see that there are whoops, I'll play it again. You see how there's, this part goes up and down, and then it leaves that little line there. That's the peak, and that gets moved around depending upon how loud, and then that goes away after you stop playing. But you could see that the peak is right just below minus 10 dB. And you could see that the output is the same, right? So watch what happens when I turn the gain up on this part of you see that the input is the same gain as it was before, but the output is higher. And the reason that the output is higher is that I'm taking this frequency range in this equalizer and I'm adding volume to it, right? Yeah, I'm adding volume to it. So it's giving me more of an output. So what you do, and this is a little bit more advanced, is you gain stage this by turning down the output so that it matches the input. You might not be able to get it exact, but you get it closer. So this is the input level and this is the output level. And that's called level matching. And that's part of gain staging and part of signal flow. All right. So let me go over all that again, all right? No, the compressors, they have a channel strip that has everything built into it, but I prefer that you didn't use that. No, the compressor's a separate plugin, Tyler. No, channel strips can be good, but you have to really understand what you're doing in order to make them work well. So just we're gonna work a little bit with compression and EQ, not too much. This is again a survey class. We get more into that at the end of Audio MIDI 1 and definitely a lot in Audio MIDI 2. Totally, we'll be working it. Okay, so let's go over again. This is our source, right? So this is akin, our source, right? our source is going through all of these guys here in this particular image. And this right here is our source. When I go to the mixer window, I can insert an EQ there, right? And that's just like here we go. That EQ is just like these pedals, right? It's being inserted into the signal path. And we can use these to shape the sound. You know, there's all sorts of stuff. You can make the sound so totally unrecognizable from a piano that, and that has its uses, right? That definitely has its uses. Then, and you can also put that EQ in from here. It's the same thing. So I want you to work inside the editor page for the semester. But the concept is this is the source, and then it goes through here. Now, one thing you have to remember that's very important is something called gain staging. All right, and that's when I was talking about level mix matching. Let me put that 7-band EQ back in here. If you notice on, let me zoom in a little. On this audio clip right here, there's a little fader, right? Do you see that? There's this little icon here and that says 0 dB. That's called clip-based gain. So it will turn up and down the volume or the amplitude of this clip. So if I turn it down, you can see the audio waveform gets smaller. And if I turn it up, it gets bigger. Now, I mix using clip-based gain quite often. But one thing that's very important about gain staging is the volume of the source needs to be at a place where it's not overdriving the plug-in. That's the first thing. There's another thing I'm going to talk about in a minute. So let me just show you this. So you see right now, this is not hitting the red. Let me do one thing first before I burn your ears out. So that's very soft now. But watch what happens as I turn this up. You see that this is in the red now. Not good. I brought the volume way down here, but hold your ears for a second or move your earbuds out of your ears for a second. But, right, you can hear that that's distorting. So what you have to make sure of is that the sound going in to the track is not too loud so that it distorts your plugins. The other reason why you need to make sure that it's not too loud is that the other part of gain staging. This area here, this meter, I'm going to show you a better way to do this, but for right now, this is good. This is the volume right up here. If I turn this up, you'll see that it starts to distort. Right into the red. Okay, so that's not good. So even though this track isn't distorting now, so you see this is going up about a little over halfway. If I do this, I'm going to duplicate this track 20 times, and I hope the Pro Tools doesn't crash on me when I do this. All right, so I've got the same track 20 times, right? You see that? How that's distorting all of a sudden? But each one of those individual tracks is not distorting. But this is what digital audio does. It takes remember, this is all numbers. It's ones and zeros, digital information. It takes the amplitude, the output amplitude of every one of those tracks and adds them all together. Excuse me, I need to. It adds them all together. That's called summing, digital summing. It's math. And if there's too much information, it overloads the output, the master bus output, and you get distortion. So it's very important that you pay attention to that as you start adding tracks. Let me delete these. Okay, so let me go over that last bit again. This has an output, right? And actually the 7-band EQ has a meter on it, which we can read. So this output peaks at about -10 at the loudest place, or maybe -6, something like that. That's not too loud, but once you start adding more tracks that are playing at the same time, all the outputs of those tracks get added together. They create a sum. And if that sum is too great for the output, you get distortion. And most people would think to turn down the volume here on the on the mixer, if you're using the mixer page.
Professor, could you just show your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I apologize.
No worries. Thanks.
Okay, let me go over that one more time. I appreciate it. Actually, it lets me know that you're watching. That's a side benefit. Okay. So let me say that again, because I'm sure you all could go over it again. This has an output level, right? And this has an output level of somewhere around -10 at its peak. And that's not distorting anything. The more tracks you add, those outputs get added on top of that. They get all summed together into one aggregate, right? And if it's distorting, what most people will do will be to turn down the output of the track, or if you've got your mixer window open, turning the fader of the mixer down. But that's not the best way to do it, because what if your track is distorting coming into the plugin, right? So it's best to turn this at first to make sure that the source that's going into the channel or the track is at the proper level, right? So that's usually less than what this is now, but this is only one track playing, so we're okay with that. All right, so that's a lot of information right there for you guys to absorb, right? And we are going to be going over this stuff again, you know. I'll do a review of this next week so that it gets strengthened in your ideas, in your memory banks. But the basic thing is that there's a source, and there's a path that source travels until it gets to the output, and the output is earbuds, headphones, speakers for this kind of work. I showed you with the guitar, it was a little bit different, the same concept, but different components, acoustic components. With something like a guitar, it's electricity. That's the kind of signal that's traveling from the source to the destination or the output. Inside of Pro Tools, it's this audio file, which is digital information, ones and zeros. Okay, and this gets converted into sound waves at the end, which vibrates your earbuds or your speakers or your headphones. The drivers of those. So that's and the other thing to know is that once you get into the DAW, this is your source here, and it travels through all these insert slots to the output. That's the first basic thing you need to understand. And then once you understand that, you need to understand that the volume of the source is very important, because the more tracks you have, the volumes of all those tracks, which are numbers, get added together, and that's called summing. And that's the total output of Pro Tools. And if what's summed together is too hot, you get distortion. So, and if it's too hot going into each individual channel, you'll overdrive and distort your plugin. So it won't work optimally. Okay. That's a lot of information there.
Professor, can I ask you a question?
Yes, certainly, Tito.
So let's say you're recording vocals. Does it matter at what level, your mic volume on that all counts? So don't leave it all the way to the end to fix everything, basically. Okay.
Yeah, let me show you something. I'm going to mute this, otherwise we'll get feedback. So I've got this microphone here plugged into one of my audio interfaces, right? And so I can route that into Pro Tools and right here. And if I record enable this, oh, excuse me. Let's do this so you can see this a little better. So I just added this track, and you can see how this is going up and down, right? That's my voice, and my voice is coming into this audio track in Pro Tools. So I can unmute this, and I'm coming through there. And let's say I go here. Give me a second. Let me see if I can figure this out. Something I can show you. Let me zoom out. Okay, that's not 1, 2. Is I can turn this back up so you can hear me. So I can do it this way though. So let me go to the end here, and then I'm gonna hit record. And no click track. That's good. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. I am talking to you now. Hello, 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 hello. Okay. So you're gonna hear me talking. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. I am talking to you now. Hello, 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 hello. Now, for what I'm doing now, that's a pretty good level, right? And I've got the knob on my interface at like about 230 on if you're thinking about a clock, and I'm getting a decent level there. It's not too hot. It's not too soft. 2. Check 1 2. I'm talking to you now. And if it gets to be too much with all my other instruments, I can bring it down here a little bit. But that's a decent gain. I won't distort it by talking louder. I've got some headroom. But these are things I'm going to be going over in future classes. But I just wanted to show you that now. Okay, great. So I just added an audio track. Tito, watch, I'll show you. Let me show you. Command-Shift-N, one new mono audio track, and I'll title this Vox 2, right? And then I would have to set the input. I've got my microphone plugged into input 4 on my interface. I think that the interfaces you guys got from the school either have 1 or 2 inputs, right? And I have to show you how to do that. So I've got input 4, and then I record enable it, and then I just start. I just start recording. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Oops, it's going while I'm playing the piano. And if I solo this, recording. Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Oops, it's going while I'm playing the piano. As you can hear, it sounds pretty good, right? The microphone's really good, and I'm talking at a distance from it, a certain distance from it. The most important thing about getting a good sound, and we're going to go over this over the next couple of weeks, is the sound of the room you're in, right? And you can look behind me and you see all those white panels on the wall. Because I'm in a room that's 14 by 12, it's not optimal acoustically. So I treated the room to stop reflections, and it's very dead in here. And having a dead sound is not the best, but it's the best solution given the size of the room I've got. It would be nicer if my room here in my house was a little bit bigger and I could have a little bit more liveness to it. But those are the options. Either I have it be live and have like what are called standing waves and flutter echoes and all this crap, or I can make it very dead and very controlled and get a clean sound, right? So, but I'll show you, I've got strategies for helping out with that at home. I've made videos on that, which I'll show you when we get to that point. Okay, so we'll come back to this particular session in a minute. I want to stop talking about audio for a minute. All right, so I want to talk to you a little bit about notation. Typically, there's a notation assignment, which is very easy. Some of you might not be able to read music. Trust me, you'll be able to do the assignment. But I don't think I'm going to do that this semester because I want to spend a fair amount of time working on audio stuff. And I have a feeling that you guys aren't going to be using notation that much. And notation isn't that great in Pro Tools anyway. So, but I do want to just go over it so you can see it, all right? So right here, I've got a little piece. Let me play this. Right, it's a stupid little piece, right? Fine. I don't have this set up properly either, which is really bad. Okay, now, if we highlight this and we open up the editor here.
Professor, can you share your screen?
Yes,
please?
thank you. Just as you said that, you know, it's like.
As long as you don't mind us telling you.
No, I don't. I appreciate you telling me. I want you to tell me. All right. Don't let me go on for half an hour with this, with my picture.
I was following your eyes. Where are you going with it?
Okay. So right here is the notation for the edit, for this little edit window here. And that looks really crazy, right? So in order for you to get notation correct, you have to edit the MIDI. So what I typically do is I write my piece of music, and if I have to print out a lead sheet for a player, which I can do from Pro Tools, that's never an issue. What I'll do is I'll go to my file and I will save as, and then I will save this as notation prep. So I leave my original session alone. I can go back to that. It'll be just like this. This is the way I like to have it sound. And now I can fix this, right? So let's select this bit here, and then I'm going to call up using option 0. Whoops. Option 0, my quantize. And I'm going to quantize the note off and the note on, and I'm going to make it to an 8th note. And you see right here that this all snapped into place. And if I open up the notation, you see how the first measure, now that looks much more normal. So we can do that also from this window. So let's say I select this like this, and I do the same thing. That's looking better. Now, I don't have any 16th notes in this part. It's all 8th notes and larger rhythmic values. So I've got this set at 8th note. So I've made that, and now I'll show you how to set up the score, but let's just go on to our next instrument, which is harp. Now let me solo this, which is clicking right up here. Right? The first thing that really stinks about Pro Tools is let's say I wanted to have this note here up on on the treble staff, and not this note, but this G on the treble staff. I can't do it by note. I have to set up a global split point. They want you to spend money on Sibelius and send this to Sibelius in order to do the detailed work. But we can still work with this. So again, there's only eighth notes in here, including, you know, even though it says 16th notes. So I'm going to select all this, and I'm going to do my same quantizing, right? Okay. This is still not how you would notate it, because this note actually should be tied to another G. So let me show you another trick. So let's go over to here. And let's select everything. And let me zoom in. And we're going to do Option and the letter P. And we're going to look at our change duration window. Now, we went over this a little bit, I believe. Option and P. Notice they've got some other cool things here. If I select legato and have a gap of nothing, right? No gap between notes, and hit apply, watch what happens to this note and this note here. Let's get this up here so you can see everything. You see that? So these notes all stop when the next note starts. And if we go to notation, now it's looking a little better. Except here, this last note, we want to make that into a half note, so we can just hit 2 and boom, and there we go. Great. All right, let's go to the piano. Again, all eighth notes with this, so let's do this. Select all. We'll do our quantizing. And then let's do our gap thing, but let's do it a little bit at a time. So Option and the letter P like Peter. And we're going to do the legato with no gap. And I'm going to continue it here. And I'll do it here, but I think there might be a little problem. Oh no, it worked fine. And then this I'm going to set to 2 beats. Oh, yeah, 2 beats. Let's see. No, I'll set that to 4 beats. That's right. Okay, so now if we look at this in notation, that's looking much better. All right, so we're going to do the same thing with the bass, but we'll do it from this window here. So I'm going to select all, and then Option 0. And then I can go click there and go to change duration with no gap. And then the last note, we want it to be 4 beats, so I can just set that to 4. Great. Okay, so now all of these look the same. I mean, they look good. So if I select them all, you can see it looks better. But there's still a little bit more work that you can do with this. So let me close this and let me shut this down. Now there is a proper score editor right here. All right. I mean, that looks crappy, and we're going to clean it up. So let's add a title. All right. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that all your clefs are correct. So if I right-click on the name, a new window opens up, and I can zoom in on that so you can see it a little bit. And Notation Display Track Settings. There's a box up here for you to select your track. So violin. Clef. Well, violin is in the treble clef. Right? Harp. Grand staff. Pianos in the grand staff. And then the bass is in the bass clef. Right? Okay, so it still looks kind of funky, right? If you click on this, you can play around with the parameters here to make it look better. So right, I'm just playing around with these between staves. We need a little more space. See, now we're getting something that looks a little better. Right, just by playing around with some of those options. And then you can't really delete all these extra. Huh. Interesting. Do I have extra information here? And then if you want to do this, you can go to your file and you could print your score. And then you could save it as a PDF. Save it desktop. Huh. Wow, this is great. You can't print that out as a PDF? What, are you kidding me? Okay, I'm a little stumped here. All of a sudden, you can't print out a PDF in Pro Tools? I've been doing this for like over a decade. I just upgraded like 3 weeks ago to the latest version of Pro Tools. I'm saving this as a PDF to the desktop. And it's not on my desktop. Well, that's interesting. Give me a second here. What a drag. Okay. Well, I guess I am not. Yes, another ploy for you to buy Sibelius, because if you look here, you can see it's grayed out. I have Sibelius. I haven't installed. This is a new computer that I've got about 6 weeks ago, and so I haven't installed Sibelius here yet. I have it in my laptop, but you can send this to Sibelius here, and that actually works really well. But yeah, I don't know why you can't all of a sudden print a PDF. So guess what? I won't be assigning this to you guys, but I wanted to show you how to do this. You know what you could also do is you could export this as a MIDI file and also open this up in any notation program, and it would import it properly. So that's another thing you can do. All right, so that's a basic thing on notation with Pro Tools. I just wanted to go over that and give you a little experience, you know, show you that you can do some stuff that looks decent. Like, for example, I'm working on a track. I'm working on something now. Right, and I printed this out from Pro Tools originally, and then I sent it over to I sent it over to my laptop, and I opened this up in Sibelius, and I didn't really do anything to this in Sibelius except to change the font. And this is just straight out of Pro Tools. So this is a score for something I'm working on now, a film I'm scoring. And I use this as a reference when I'm working. So it is a functional thing. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it does work. All right. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is audio editing. And this will be an assignment. This will probably be the next assignment, which will be due 2 weeks from today, but I will assign it next week. Okay. So back to our original audio files that we were looking at before. So editing audio is incredibly important. Learning how to do the basics of editing audio. So in my professional life, I often have to edit audio. I've been editing audio for 20 years. And so 20 years ago, I was writing music for hire, stuff called production music for companies called Killer Tracks. I wrote stuff for NBC Sports, Fox Sports. And the way that it would work would be that I had to write a piece that was about 2 minutes long, topical. So they give me a brief that said, we want something that's light drama with a pulse, right? So whatever I write a piece, and it would have to be about 2 minutes long. And then once it got accepted, I would have to make edits. I'd have to make a 60-second version, a 30-second version, maybe a 15-second version, and then like a something called a bumper, which would be like 3 seconds long that you could go out like bop, and then you're into commercials, right? So yeah, you had to learn how to do all this stuff that was part of the gig. What if you write a piece of music and somebody wants to use it on a podcast or on their YouTube video or somewhere, and your piece of music is 6 minutes long, but they've only got 2 minutes and they want it to be 2 minutes long? Well, you need to know how to edit audio so you can do that yourself, and you're not beholden to somebody else to do that kind of work for you. Yeah. So how does that work? Let's go to the videotape, as they used to say. Now, the first thing you want to do is you want to get a sense of the form. And that's why I've got these very simple little pieces that are very easy to do. And then I'll import some audio more complex, and I'll edit for you and show you what's possible. But let's start with the simple stuff. So we've got, right, so this is just up a scale in an interval of a tenth, and then down the scale. So we have to think about the form of the song and come up with a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So this piece has a beginning. And now we're getting towards the middle. I mean, this is a bipartite form, A section and then a B section, right? Got this ascending scale. Well, the most important thing is making sure that you've got a strong ending. So what if it went do da 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 na na na, right? That could work. So the end, this starts here. And what we'll do is we will select that, right? We're using our selector tool. I'm going to hold the shift key down and I'm going to go right to here. And this is the part that I want to get rid of. Okay. So if we look up over here, there are 4 edit modes. We've been using grid. I think we might have used slip a little. The next one I'm going to introduce to you is shuffle. So I'm going to shuffle. It's the red one. And what that will do is if I delete this section that's selected, this part here will slide over and butt up right against this edit point right here. So let me delete, and you'll see that, how that happened. So now let me play this and see if I have to do any other work. What was that? A little click there, right? Why is there a click there? Let's investigate that. So let's zoom in. And we can see that this is kind of like clipping off the beginning of the note here. So there's two. So if I zoom in further, you see it's not crossing the rest point, right? In other words, right here, you could see that the window is cutting off. The edit should happen right at the 0 line in the middle. So there's 2 ways to work this out. So I'm still in slip mode. I can use my trimmer tool, drag this over and try to find there, right? Now you see how that's nicely done. Let's see if that fixes my problem. It's better, but there's still a little bit of a click. So what I'm going to do now is teach you how to make a crossfade. All right. So I'm going to zoom in and I just want to do a crossfade very slight. So I'm going to click just a little bit to the left or right, and then I'm going to drag past there. And then if this is on the A and Z, the keyboard focus, all you have to do is push the letter F like Frank, and it draws a crossfade. And there you have a perfect edit. Now, if you want to undo that, just a bunch of Command Z's. Let me go back to grid mode, and let me try that again, and let me try a different edit. What if I went from here to here, right? This will be the short one to go from into commercial. Right, so do you see what I did there? I selected that using the grid mode, and I made sure, I made sure that my grid was set to a resolution where I could get the beginning of the note. And then I moved over to shuffle mode, and then I hit delete, and let's take a listen. Okay, so there's a little bit of schmutz there that needs to be cleaned up. And you could see here that what happened was that the beginning of this note here came in early, came in before beat 3. So if I just put the playback head there, that seems to be the beginning of that note. Do Command E to separate that out. And I'm going over this all again next week, all right, because this stuff is important and I want to make sure you get it. And I'm going to double click to highlight that, and I'm going to hit the delete key, and then this snaps over against that border. And I might have to do a crossfade, but let's take a listen. So that's better, and just a little crossfade. So I'm using the R and T key to zoom in and out. Just like that. Fade. And there's a shorter one. Okay. Any questions on that? We're going to do more edits in a minute. We're going to continue through this, right? So the most important thing is, at first, while you're learning this, is to figure out an alternative structure that's going to work. In other words, your edit should still sound like a complete piece. That's the first thing. You have to find your in point and your out point. So where the edit's going to start and where it's going to end, you're going to have to select that. And I would suggest at first to use grid mode, right? This way you don't have to worry about using what's called tab to transient, which I'll show you a little later on. You select that and then you switch to shuffle mode, and then you delete what you've selected. And if this is the first part and this is the second part, when you hit shuffle mode, this part slides right over and abuts against the end of the leftmost clip. All right, so one thing I didn't talk about before is you need to set your grid up here to what the smallest rhythmic value is. So these are all half notes or whole notes. So I'm going to just set it to a quarter note. I don't need to set it to eighth notes or 16th notes, right? So this one can have many different edits, and I'll do a few. So we got one, right? So this could be an edit. And I might have to do a crossfade. Yep, need to do a little crossfade there. Hit the letter F like Frank. Right, so it's the end, and we'll be back after this word from our sponsors. Fade to black into the commercial, right? Okay. That's one edit. Let's try another one. Right, so we can go dee da da ba da da. Right, so that means we can get rid of the middle 4. That will work too. Go to shuffle mode, delete. Probably have to do a crossfade. No. Hold on a second. Yeah, just a tiny little fade. No, we don't really actually need to do a really much of a fade. I'm just going to just do a tiny one. Great. All right, so what other ones can we do? What if I got rid of this part here? I'm not sure this will work, but let's see. So before I do any fade, I just want to see this chord progression and see how it works. Yeah, not bad. The piece is a little asymmetrical now. It's 3 phrases instead of 2 or 4, but that's okay. Right, so you could see how there's many possibilities available. Let's skip that. Okay, so let's do something a little bit more tricky. And this one we're going to use slip mode. So let's listen to this a little bit. Okay, so that's all sampled instruments. I'm playing all those notes on the keyboard. Really wonderful instruments to play. So let's talk about this, right? So somewhere in here, right? So let me just see where that will be. So like right there. Nope. You can hear how the sounds overlap, and that makes it tricky. But I think that that's a good spot. So I'm going to Command E and separate that out. And then this is a little easier. So this is, and now we're moving to the end right here. So this would be a good. Good. And then Command E, highlight this, go to Shuffle, hit Delete. Okay, so that doesn't work, but right here might work. So let me get rid of this. And let's do a little crossfade, a little longer. So you see what I'm saying? I have to sort of play around with these things. Yeah. So that works. So that's an edit for that. So that's really tricky. Let me do that again. Right, so this is out. It's in time, but the attacks of the notes are slow and they overlap the ends of previous notes. So it's really tricky to find the edit points, right? So let's see if I can find another one. That might be a spot. I want to just make it so that when it plays back, right there. Yep. So that's a good spot to do an edit from. Well, what if I went here and did this other one that I really liked? So this will be really short. I can hit the delete key and let's see. So you hear how that... So this other note's starts right there. So what I'll do is Command E and get rid of that, and then do a nice crossfade like this, and this should be better. Yep. So play this from the beginning. So this is like the short version, right? So it's really short. I want to see what would happen if I made the crossfade a little longer. So if I go back to slip mode and use my trimmer tool, I can make this longer. Whoops, not like that. Whoops. I can just grab that and make that longer. So this is a bigger fade. Yeah, see, that sounds better. See, this one's really tricky. I would, if you're just starting out, I probably wouldn't suggest you do this one. But you can see how you can even edit orchestral music to make it shorter. Okay, so moving forward, this one will probably be useful to most of you. So you can hear that this is a drum beat, and it's got 16th note pulse to it. So I'm going to change my grid to 240 or a 16th note. And what I want you to gather from this one is that every one of these little bits here is an instrument, right? That's a hi-hat. That's a kick drum. That's a snare drum. That's another hi-hat, right? So what you can do is you can take this drum beat and you can make a brand new drum beat. So let me just show you. So I've got my grid set to 16th notes and I'm in grid mode. So what if I wanted to add another hi-hat? I could copy this, right, which is Command C, and I could put the playback head there and paste it. And then maybe I would take this snare drum, copy this, and paste this here. I don't like that, but maybe this, now, maybe I'll put this here so we get more of a 16th note pulse, and it's a different volume than this one here. So what I can do is I can use the grabber tool, select this, hold the Option key down, click and drag this over, and it just duplicate drags it. And then maybe I could take this and pop this here. Right, so I just moved the quieter hi-hat. And I could take both of these, I could copy those and paste them both there. So that's a snare drum and a kick drum. Maybe I'll put that here. Here, actually might be better. Whoops. Right, so this is transformational editing, right? put that there. So that's an example of transformational editing. You can also do that here. This is a little bit more difficult because there's a lot of stuff going on. What if I copy this and put that here? I like zoom, and maybe I could put that here. Copy that. See, you also notice that this one here is a little odd because it's not, whoops. Jeez. It's not quantized right on the beat, so it makes it a little bit more tricky. But you could still do transformational stuff with this. All right, so this is going to be your assignment for 2 weeks from today. I'll make the materials available at some point this week and, give precise instructions. It'll be less work for undergraduates as opposed to graduate students. And you just will pick and do some edits. You'll do some, with the first ones, you'll do, you'll make it shorter. And then with some of the drum ones, you can do it transformational, make it a new beat. There is one more here. There's another string orchestra piece. Let's listen to this. Yeah, so this one you could make shorter also. That's pretty easy to do. I'm just thinking, I got through all of today's material a little bit quicker than I thought I would. There's something else I can show you, I'd like to show you. But before I do, is there anything from today that's been so far that you want me to review again, that you want me to re-explain to you? Anything?
Professor, it's not from today, but you kind of explained, you showed us how to record onto like something that was already recorded in a way that it wouldn't overlap.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Midi Merge. You're talking about an instrument track, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so up here in your MIDI controls, that's wait for note. This is your metronome, your click track. This is your conductor track. And this guy right here, this is Midi Merge. So you could turn that on. And then let me do this. Oh, I don't have a click track in this session. Let me create a click track. All right, so let's go to measure 137, just for fun. Okay, so I've got a little drum thing here. Let's do this. Right. Let me move my mic out of the way so I can get a little more keyboard happening. Great. So I want to record drums. 3, 4. Okay, so that's my 2 bars. That's my kick drum. Next, I'll record my hi-hat, which is here. Right, and that is possible because Midi Merge is on. Now, if I have that off and I want to record my snare drum, watch what happens. Everything gets erased, right? Let me undo that. Put Midi Merge back on. 2, 3, 4. And that's how you would use Midi Merge. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
Now, look, this is very helpful in a lot of ways, right? If I were to change this to, let's say, I'll put a keyboard kind of a sound in, right? Let's do vibraphone, right? Okay. That says drums, but 2, 3, 4. So I got my vibes there, right? So what if I wanted to add something that went, and I can't play that because I don't have piano skills to play all that together? Well, you can do it this way. 2, 3, And there so now, and that's not cheating, all right? You're painting. You're using anything you can to get the information in to Pro Tools or Logic or any DAW. They all have this. It might have a different name, but it all has this MIDI overdub. It might be called or something like that. But in Pro Tools, it's called MIDI Merge. And then you could do another one, right? What if I wanted to have a low note on offbeats or something? Right? You could do that. Okay. So we've got about 20 minutes. And I don't really teach drum programming in this class. It's more, I do teach it in Audio MIDI 1. But I don't know what you're working on, but let me just show you another thing that you can employ if you want to. So if you go to your Air Music Technology or in your instrument, and you can, this has sort of a boom. This is sort of their take on an old school drum machine. And by old school drum machine, I mean 1980s, right? So if we look up right, this is a Roland 808. In the 80s, there's like lots of records were recorded using this, the 707, the 909, the 606, the Linn drum machine, the Drumulator, which was made by Emu, the emulator people, the SP, the SP something or other, I forget what it was called. That was also very popular, right? And you could see that on this, right? You've got a way to select your instrument, which is up here. And then you've got a mixer over here, which has your level of each instrument, the tone of each instrument, the tuning, and then you can select between a conga and a tom, and these are all synthesized sounds. And what you do is these buttons here are 16 steps, like there's 16 steps in a measure. So if your tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, they're like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, right? That's what each one of these buttons is. So you select your instrument and you pop in where you want that instrument to be on the of those 16 subdivisions. So that's basically the way that, and then you make like a 1 or 2 bar pattern, and then you chain a bunch of them together to create a song. So if we look at boom here, it's similar, right? You've got a mixer over here, which are, you've got a kick drum, snare drum, rim, clap, closed hi-hat, open hi-hat, high tom, low tom, ride, and crash. It comes with a bunch of different drum kits, and you can select drum kits like this by clicking right over here. Whoops. So you can have Urban 1, Urban 2, just a variation, right? You can have Dance 1. So you have all these different kits. But what you can do is you can also swap out individual instruments. So right here, it's the kick. And if you notice right above the word kick, it says Urban 1. That's the drum kit. But if I click here, I can audition the sound. I can go right here. And what if I wanted to have Dance 1 as my kick drum? No, I don't like that. What if I wanted to have 808? Right? Maybe I like that drum kit, or maybe I like Urban 2. That's okay. What if I wanted a dance snare? Right? So you can make your own drum kits from individual components of all the kits. And then you won't be able to hear this on your computers, but this is a channel strip, sort of, like in Pro Tools, and right, so I'm playing that snare now. I can, if you listen to this on YouTube, it's coming out of my left ear now. I've moved the pan. It's coming out of my right ear. It's back in the middle. I can turn it up. I can turn it down. I can change the tuning. And I can change the decay. So you can make it really punchy. It's funny because in a lot of pop music productions, there's a lot of reverb on the drum kits. They put them in rooms. Doesn't need to be a ton of reverb like it's in a big cavern, but there's drum ambience, and then they add like a room on top of that, and then maybe it's also going through a plate. So there might be like 2 or 3 reverbs on a snare drum. But Prince, one of his big things on a lot of his songs is he used no reverb at all on the drums, and very dry and very snappy. And that kind of reminds me of that. That song Kiss has a very dry, snappy drum kit like that. So what you can do is, over here, you see you've got your pattern, right? And if you notice, if I were to clear this, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? I'm not broadcasting this. Okay, jeez. So let me do that again. We've got our kick. We got 1. You see the different color? 2, 3, 4. So these lighter colored background bars, that's each beat. So beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4, and then these are the 16th notes in between the beats. So the way that you can easily program this is to click here, right? So now I've got a kick drum on every beat. So I'm going to push start. And then I can do this while it's playing. And then I can have hi-hats. Okay, so that's cool, right? You can do that. And then the way that you know where that is, pattern 1, C3. So that means when I push the middle C, it plays that pattern. Now, the next thing we can do is we can add some accents. So you notice how these are all bright red. Well, it comes with 3 levels of dynamics. So if I were to do this, you see how that's a little bit lighter red, and I click it again, and that's barely on, and then click it a third time, and it's off. So if I wanted to do some accents on the hi-hats, right, where all these beats are quieter, like the first and third 16th notes. So let me clear this by clicking there, and let me show you what I mean. So if I just drag, click on all of these 16th notes on the hi-hat, right, it's going to play them all at the same volume. So I can get some dynamics in here, right, this would be like one way to do this. And if I play this, and you see how, and then I can do the same thing with the kick drum. I could have this pickup kick drum be softer. Whoops. Here we go. Well, that's too soft, so maybe I would go back just down 1 level. So if I wanted to program that into Pro Tools, like right here, what I do is right, and then I would have to just make sure that I'm starting right on the beat. So I'd have to edit this. Oh, okay. Right, so that started right on the beat and it ended. So I have to go to grid mode, ended right at the end of the beat. So then we've got, we're at a different tempo here, so it's much faster. So that's the basics of Boom. You know, I could get into that more next week if you want me to. But like I said, I don't really teach drum programming in this class. That's really something I say for Audio MIDI 1. But I think that we got through the editing stuff a lot quicker than I thought we would. So I figured I would put it here. Now, before we call it a day, because that's a lot of information I went over today, let's just talk again about what's going on. So wherever you are in your project, you're going to get that uploaded by tomorrow so that I can go over it and get you feedback. All right. And it's due next Monday. There's going to be next Monday, I'm going to assign an audio editing program. The class review video is going to be up like right after class. All right. I've been live streaming this on YouTube as we've been speaking. And yeah, it seems to have gone pretty well. I've got 7 people watching there now. The audio is better there. But unfortunately, I won't have time to edit and make it shorter and concise to the point, but I will try to get chapters up so you can, you know, fast forward by clicking on the chapter. And that'll be helpful to get rid of the downtime between segments or while I'm setting something up. So any questions on any of this? Everybody understand what's due next week?
So that's what I wanted to clear up about. What is it that's due on Monday? The one that we're working on, the MIDI that we're working on now?
Correct. And you're going to hand in your rough draft, your latest draft today or tomorrow. Okay. And I will give you feedback on that. And then you will finish it up next week.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yep. And that's basically it. All right, everyone. Be safe out there. And I will see you all next week. All right. Take care of yourselves.
Have a good night.
Hi, Professor.